Welcome to the deep dive. So we took this interesting approach this time. We grabbed a stack of 12 biblical verses, seemingly random, right?
Yeah, pulled from different places. Isaiah, Acts, Jeremiah, you name it.
And we looked at them across different ancient translations, specifically the Greek Septuagint, the LXX.
Right, the older one. And compared it with the Hebrew Masoretic text, the MT, which is, the foundation for many versions, like the Urim Thummim version.
Exactly. And our mission, well, it seems simple enough at first. Could we find some kind of coherent theme here, something that could maybe guide your current revision work on the UTV?
And honestly, it was surprising, that feeling of randomness. It just sort of dissolved.
Really?
Yeah. These verses, they actually lined up, they mapped onto this clear four-part structure. We're calling it the chain of divine testimony.
Okay, the chain of divine testimony. Break that down. What are the parts?
It covers the whole flow, where the message originates, the source, then its transmission, how humans receive it or don't, that's reception, and finally, the consequence.
Got it. Source, transmission, reception, consequence. So let's start at the beginning, the source. Where does the chain anchor?
It anchors firmly in God's character, unfailing. Isaiah 49.15 is a great example.
Yeah.
That powerful question, can a mother forget her own child?
Right, seems impossible.
Exactly. And the MT version really lands the punch. Even if these forget, yet I will not forget you. It's incredibly direct.
So it's not just a nice thought, it's fundamental.
Precisely. It's an ontological statement. It's about God's very being, his faithfulness. That's the absolute anchor for this whole chain. It holds even when humans fail.
Like in 2 Chronicles.
Exactly. 2 Chronicles 21.7. God keeps his promise to David, keeps that lamp going, even though King Jehoram was, terrible. God's reliability trumps human failure. Always.
Okay, so the source is solid, unshakable. Where does the chain usually break then? Is it in the transmission?
Often it's later, in the reception, how humans respond, or, more accurately, how they fail to respond.
And it's not always about not knowing.
Right? No, often it's about delay or lack of will. Look at 2 Samuel 19.11. The elders of Judah, they were the last to bring back the king. They knew what needed doing politically. They just hesitated, failed to act.
A failure of political will.
And that kind of failure points to maybe a deeper issue. It makes you ask, is it just bad choices? Or is there something fundamental we can't grasp on our own?
Which brings us to Job.
Right, Job 28.3. It says humanity can achieve amazing things, right? We can search out every limit, dig deep into the earth, into darkness and the shadow of death for treasure.
We can mine anything, basically.
Almost anything. But that same drive, that same searching, cannot find divine wisdom. It's not something you can dig up or figure out on your own. It has to be received, humbly accepted.
Okay, received, not mined. That's a key distinction. And it feels like that sets up the differences we see in the translations themselves, right? The LXX versus the MT.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because the LXX translators often seem to be doing more than just translating words. They're sometimes adding a layer of interpretation, guiding the reader theologically.
Which, for your UTV revision, raises a question. If the MT is the base, how much weight do you give a translation like the LXX, especially when it seems to add things? Isn't that tricky?
It is tricky, but fascinating. The LXX acts almost like embedded commentary sometimes. It shows how early communities understood the texts. Take Proverbs 29.1.
Okay.
The MT warns that a stubborn, stiff-necked person will be suddenly broken. It's like a structural failure, very straightforward.
But the LXX?
The LXX dials it way up. It says that person will be suddenly set on fire and adds, with no remedy.
Wow. Okay. Broken versus set on fire with no remedy. That's a significant difference in consequence.
Huge difference. One is structural collapse. The other is like eschatological judgment. Fiery, final.
Any other examples like that?
Jeremiah 30.6 is another stark one. The MT paints this picture of pure anguish men doubled over like they're in labor. Just sheer horror and unnatural suffering.
Yeah, very vivid image.
It is. But the LXX translation adds something crucial. It inserts the phrase, and look for safety. The Greek word is soteria, salvation, deliverance.
So it reframes the whole thing.
Exactly. It takes this scene of apparently pointless agony and gives it purpose. The suffering becomes a crisis that explicitly forces people to seek salvation, to look for a way out provided by God.
Okay, so the LXX isn't just translating, it's often interpreting the purpose behind the words, especially around judgment and salvation.
That's what we're seeing in these examples, yes. It's theologically generative.
So bringing this all back to the Urim Thummim version revision, what's the practical recommendation here, given these findings? You have the solid MT base, but this rich interpretive LXX tradition.
Well, it points towards a kind of synthesis. First, you absolutely keep the Masoretic text as the base text. For consistency, for historical grounding, that's essential.
Okay, MT stays primary.
But second, you need to elevate the Septuagint. Treat it as a primary consultative source, not just an occasional reference. Give it real weight.
And how do you show that to the reader?
That's the crucial third point. Implement a really robust footnoting system. Be transparent. Show the reader the significant variants like the fire in Proverbs or the safety in Jeremiah.
So the reader sees the different layers.
Exactly. It educates them, shows the depth, and lets them appreciate the full scope of this chain of divine testimony as it was understood over time.
And accepting that whole chain from God's faithfulness through the need for reception to the consequences, where does that ultimately lead the reader?
It leads, I think, to what Matthew 6.25 talks about. Freedom from anxiety. Be not anxious about life.
Because the source is reliable.
Precisely. If you truly accept that first link, God's unwavering faithfulness as seen in Isaiah, then deep-seated anxiety about provision, it just doesn't compute. It becomes illogical.
So the practical payoff is peace.
Grounded in that promise, yes. Which leaves us with a final thought, maybe for you, the listener, to chew on. If ancient translations like the Septuagint were already, in a sense, doing theology within the text, adding these interpretive layers, what does that say about interpretation itself? That it's this ongoing, active thing. And what responsibility does that then place on you today as you read and receive this testimony?
A challenge to active reception. Makes sense. The chain isn't complete until it lands and is acted upon.
Exactly. It requires engagement.